I want to start by saying good afternoon, or whatever time it is for you. And thank you for making the time just before a holiday weekend, maybe the most normal holiday weekend we've had in a while, I hope. We think you're going to love and learn from today's program as we look at two fascinating areas. First, we're going to look at Sundance reimagined as it was during the pandemic. And then we're going to look at how audio is shaping the future of the events industry. And we have great guests for you. But first, I'm going to share my screen and give you my commercial announcement. So there you have your agenda. And can you see my screen? Yes. And I just can't forward it. I'm stuck. I think I'm stuck because people are coming into Zoom. There we go. So first of all, I wanted to thank our founding members, who we now have a few of. It is a membership association. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And our mission here is to really create better virtual events. I don't care if they take place in the metaverse or the Las Vegas verse or any other verse. We are just learning this new skill, and I think we can learn it better together. I went to CoinDesk this week, and I have to tell you that they used an NFT that they created, a non-fungible token, to engage the audience. So basically, you put some tokens in the bank, and then you got points for engaging with different sessions, for talking to people, for meetings with people, and then you got to redeem your tokens in their store. And it was called Dollar Desk, and it went crazy, and their traffic skyrocketed. And that's the sort of creativity we love to see. We're going to call it out. So if you don't get our newsletter, we try and call out the best of everything we've seen each week. And it's usually pretty good. So sign up for it on the website, virtualeventsgroup.org. Next up, when I give public deadlines when I give public deadlines, I mean them, because it makes me like embarrassed if I miss them. So by the end of June, you will see the beginning of our community. We picked a community that was easy to use, but will allow you to share resources, meet each other, talk about events, give us your best ideas. And as we build this out all month, if there's anything that you think we need, whether it's a job board or a top 10 listing, we have over 400 products reviewed on the website now. And we will continue to build this robust community. So again, come visit us. I always say what's on the top of our mind. This week, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Nimble, who have the best CRM as far as I'm concerned, because it's social in nature. I can check out each one of you and find out all your social handles and stay in touch with you. A lot less obtrusive than Salesforce. And TradeWing, who is helping us build our community center. We have 400 products reviewed, as I said, and we're seeing consolidation this week. Socio, a big events company, announced that Cisco was acquiring them. Zoom is about to announce their summer event platform and step into the leagues. Microsoft Teams, I think you know, is making a really big push to increase their capabilities. So I expect that a year from now, you are going to see more acquisitions and a different landscape. And then I always leave with a thought for the day. And this week, it struck me that last year we had to toil alone a lot, frankly, because there was no time to toil together. We were so busy. This is the year where we can start to learn from each other about what worked and what didn't. So with that, are we going to do a poll? No, we're not. We just want to know if you shower more now than you did at the same time last year, if you brush your teeth, and if you use deodorant, because apparently those three things are skyrocketing. So you can think about those questions. We're going to ask you to keep your mics muted. We'll start the presentations, and we'll give some time after the presentations for Q&A. And we hope to have you on your way in 1 hour. So with that, I want to take a minute to talk about Sundance, which, I think as outsiders to Sundance, what all of us felt this year, we were on the inside, whether it was the Met Gala or Sundance. I saw things that I never would have seen in real life. So Tara Hine-Phillips actually is no stranger to anything online. When she's not producing Sundance, she's the executive director of continuing education at USC. So she's online and digital first by nature. And she teamed up with John Williams, who is a fractional CTO. For those of you that don't know, a fractional CTO are the guys that you call when you're like desperate and you really need help. They had 6 months to turn this thing around from a physical event into a virtual event. And they had to be mindful of keeping the rituals and the togetherness and the feeling that Sundance meant to their audience and still letting a bigger world in. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to turn it over to Tara and John and stop my screen share. And thank you for doing this, Tara and John. I'm going to spotlight you.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having us. And I just want to say that I always wore deodorant, but I have returned to wearing trousers with waists and not just leggings. That's my move back into the real world. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a couple of slides, but mostly we're going to tell the story and hopefully leave some space for questions as well. All right. Can everybody see my screen now? Hopefully. All right. So this is a little bit the story of how we got there. I don't know how many people here will have come to Sundance before, but the thing to know about Sundance is that it is a, it's a beloved event, if you haven't been, that is very, very based in the real world. It happens in the mountains. It happens with 2 to 4 feet of snow on the ground. It happens with a lot of confusion. And part of like the ethos of that and not making that simpler over the years has been about discovery. It's a place of discovery. It's a place to discover new films, but it's very confusing when you first start going. But once people get into it, it's, there's kind of like the secret way to get into this film or this party. And, so it has so much, there were so many rituals and so much energy attached to that the thought of it going digital for this organization was, I mean, even up until 2 weeks before, I think we would have said there was a lot of hope that we could do something live. So we went into this knowing that up until this festival, there had only ever been paper tickets. There had only ever been a wait list that took $25 in cash, if there were extra seats. There was only ever, there was a mobile app, but the mobile app basically just told you what was around you. It really was very much geared toward this live experience, but it had this, this sense of community and feeling and discovery that we needed to replicate. So we turned it into this. So essentially, the wait list and all those things became a waiting room before a film and a QA after a film. We timed all the premieres so that films were, they were showing up on your schedule. They were only available for 3 hours the first time they premiered. And if you wanted access to those, you had to actually choose this film versus that film. We went away from sort of the norm of, kind of the Netflix model of you can just watch everything video on demand. And if you chose to experience it live, you would go into a waiting room, you could have a chat with other people, just like you would before a real film, watch the film, and then seamlessly get to a Q&A afterwards where the artists were talking live about their film. The other spaces that we created, as you can see sort of to the right of the screen, we created a community space where people could go and actually meet each other in a more informal way. There were films available in that space as well, but this was mostly used to connect. All the artist events were held in this space. And we had some help with our friends at IDFA in Amsterdam who loaned us some virtual reality hidden places where people could go. So if you walked over to one of those pods, you might be able to see a film you would be able to chat with somebody who was standing next to you, and look, there's John Williams having a chat with a pretty woman, and unsurprisingly. And then we would go to, but you could walk over to somebody and say the word Amsterdam, and then it would show you how to take a portal to a karaoke bar that had been built by the team in Amsterdam. So it had all kinds of its own digital rituals and things like that. And it happened all online. So in the town of Park City, this is the Egyptian theater, even they although there was nobody there, they wanted the community to remember that it was online, it was happening. And so we created a bit of a presence even in the city. We had goals to make sure right from the beginning, we wanted to set some guardrails. So, we knew we needed to have the highest quality stream. We needed to have the most secure stream. We began experimenting probably 6 months before the festival with forensic watermarking and different partners who were able to provide that. We had some private screenings. It was the scariest moment ever when we premiered Apple's Boy State, just to make sure that the stream wouldn't be pirated. And our hope was that it wouldn't, but we weren't sure. It was our first time hosting a filmmaker QA. So all of that, we kind of experimented throughout up until the festival, but there was nothing probably that really could have prepared us for the number of premieres, the number of streams, the number of things that had to happen simultaneously. So we had to put live teams in place for each one of those. We also wanted the interface to be as easy as possible. We knew that this isn't, these are artists. This is an analog group to a large extent. They prefer it that way. We wanted to make sure that the interface and, the tools all were simple to use. We wanted to make sure that we were engaging the community and bringing them into the experience, making sure that they had the access, both that they would have had at the festival to each other, especially, and that was obviously a huge piece, but also how we might connect filmmakers so that filmmakers could feel the buzz of their films. That's kind of what this most relates to. And, it's one thing to walk out onto a stage after a film premieres for the very first time and see an excited Sundance audience. Obviously that was missing this year. So we needed to put some mechanisms in place for that. And that contributed to that feeling of liveness. And then there was, throughout it all, we wanted this sense that we were meeting the moment, that we were aware we were in a pandemic, that we were aware that, we were in a interesting time politically. We had to think about a lot of those things coming up to the festival. We actually moved the festival a week away from the inauguration so that we had some distance from that. And, but we were conscious of the world around us and making sure that that was being reflected in the conversations and in the kinds of, community events that were being hosted. And then we had to accommodate. What we learned was a large group of constituents with customized experiences, and that was a pretty nuanced group. I mean, between donors at various levels, sponsors at various levels, artists at various levels, audience members, depending on the kind of tickets they had, and never mind all the other kind of partner groups. And we had to really account for what the liveliness of Main Street meant for our partners and sponsors, and weave them into this whole experience. So that was kind of our goal. I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about what that actually meant in practice.
Thanks, Tara. So there was a lot of technology at play, and I really want to thank all of our partners who helped Sundance as a nonprofit put this on in a short 6 months. In the yellow there, that was our core platform that we actually built with a vendor called Ansha Labs, which did ticketing, screening, overview, program guide. It was our CMS and also our festival village for all of our partners. And that was built on AWS using auto scaling. We had React, JavaScript React on the front end, and Node on the back end. We were using Stripe for financial transactions. And then we used Zoom through YouTube Live for Q&As that we had, by the way, which we did live after each of the 73 film premieres. And by the way, I want to say all 73 live Q&As at an exact time, Tara, they all went off without a hitch.
everyone.
I haven't heard that from any other conference. I've heard technical challenges. I don't know if we were lucky or planned or what it was, but it went off without a hitch. On the secure, we had to do digital rights management, watermarking, and other things around these secure video assets. I mean, they're worth a lot of money out on the market. We needed to prevent that, and we did successfully. We had no piracy. We used a partner called Shift 72 for the video delivery and protection. By the way, we hired 3 different security firms to help us with that. So this was a big deal for us. We really promised and delivered to our filmmakers that we would protect their valuable assets, which we did. You saw in the opening screen that virtual reality space that was built in WebXR by a vendor called Active Theory, who'd done it before. And kind of a nod to Teri, who's going to be talking after us, we did voice circles. So you would walk near someone and you would get a prompt. Do you want to start talking to them? We were actually going to do video as well on talking heads, but we found when we tested, it was really distracting. So we just did voice only, but you could talk to anyone in the virtual reality space. And I talked about Festival Village. What else? So we also had an industry marketplace. So we actually set up a press and industry space where press and industry could meet each other through a private Zoom, through private email, and actually do a film deal. You know, that's one of the assets of Sundance, is actually doing deals around films. So we use NetSuite, a lot of technologies, probably 10 plus different technologies. And again, I just want to thank all of our partners. They were instrumental in helping Sundance as a nonprofit deliver that. And I'm happy to answer questions. Tara, what do we have next? Or are we at the Q&A?
Yeah, we have a little bit more, and then we're ready for questions. So really, it's talking about how it went. So when you started to talk about this, we were very fortunate because we really came down to the wire on a lot of these things. As John was talking, I think I was starting to twitch with PTSD. I mean, it was a lot of pieces coming together. It was a lot of platforms, a lot of integrations to try to create something that I think in the end really felt seamless. The thing that I really love about these comments, this idea that a virtual festival can be real, really made me feel the proudest, probably. I really like the idea that people felt like they were having a real experience and that really worked. I think there were a lot of things published about this, so I won't get into all of them, but there was a record number of attendees. There were a record number of film sales. That a film sold for the most amount that any Sundance film has ever sold for at its first virtual festival. So in many ways, and the reach, we reached audiences that we'd never reached before. We reached people all, of all ages and all backgrounds. The only thing that was happening in the real world, and that I didn't say before, we also had some drive-ins and things like that through our art house partners around the country. But even they then introduced a new generation of, kind of art house fans in those local communities back to this virtual platform. So in all respects, it was an immense success, and we're quite proud of it. And the only other thing I want to say is just, at the beginning when you said, a fractional CTO is somebody that you call when you're desperate, that couldn't have been more true. So I literally, that was the call, wasn't it? And we were very lucky to have someone so experienced and calm and cool, managing so many of these pieces and helping to keep the teams calm and cool and collected. So it was a wonderful collaboration, but we were extremely lucky to have so much support. We also had, I just want to say, we had an incredible team just in general. I can't say enough about Anshar Labs, just in terms of their calm and cool, under the circumstances. Great QA team, wonderful product owner, Ama Aquara, who just was extraordinary. So really in general, it couldn't have gone better. It was as I'm sure many of you have experienced, it was an around the clock, nail biting, could have gone very wrong at various moments experience that I doubt anyone will forget for a long time. But it's really set the future in motion for Sundance in terms of what next year looks like. And, you know, coming into this year, Sundance could have said, we'll take what we can get in live this year, but they're not saying that. And I think digital will be a big component of expanding Sundance's mission and reach, into the future.
So first of all, that was pretty amazing. Now, my only question is, do we have a mute button for in real life now that we've established rituals in the online world? But I'm going to ask let's see how I'm going to ask the audience. How about raising your hand if you have a question, and we will call on you if I can find my spotlight. Any questions from the audience? Michael Miller. The main reason I'm talking to John Williams today is because of Michael Miller. So thank you, and ask your question.
So John, the event starts. What's the biggest surprise you have, and how did you handle it?
Wow. So I guess we had a lot of surprises before the event. Maybe I can tell you that we underestimated the customer service contacts we were going to have, and the fact that the premieres were live. We only had like a 10-minute window to help someone to watch the film to get into the live Q&A. So we went from really a very small customer service team to to increasing the customer service team by a factor of 10, which we did in a week. So it was unbelievable. So, and again, thank you to partners. I was on the phone with someone at Etsy who's got an outsourced customer service. I got a vendor called Partner Hero from them. I found someone else through another network. You know, I think the biggest lesson for me, Michael, and you and I have talked about this before, is it was people that Tara and I know that helped us deliver this. The Sundance team, the internal team, they just delivered an amazing internal product, and it was through our network that allowed us to put the technology on top of that. So it was a great partnership.
Thank you, Michael. Do I see any other hands up? So I just want to sort of frame the process, because this is amazing. We saw all those boxed grids on your sheet. So how do you start? Do you say, I need a village, I need rights? I mean, did you make a laundry list of what you needed and then find the technologies? Or some other genius way?
You know, Tara started and then she told me to go figure it out, right?
Well, we were lucky that we also had just recently built Sundance Collabs. So Sundance Collab is a digital platform for artists. It's more focused on work in progress and artists. It's an artist community. But because of that, we also had a digital team in place that, you know, a lot of which we were able to, you know, kind of leverage and pull from, you know, at least to be able to conceive of how we could do this live. I think also in some respects, we just started, you know, and one of the things we thought was that we were going to need a lot of practice. So we went ahead and, you know, and said yes to this premiere, you know, with Boy State. And it was literally 3 weeks, I think, before the event. And we still weren't really sure exactly what we were doing and how we were integrating things. And so over time, we just kind of like kept adding, but John's right. I mean, I think even when we had thought it through, and even when all the boxes came into place, and even when we, you know, sort of lined up vendors for those things, the way that they came together and the collisions of things, that was probably, that was more unexpected.
We had some principles, Robin, like we did single sign-on, we did content integration. And I also want to kind of tip my hat to the Sundance team. I mean, all of the Sundance team had never done this before. They kind of put their trust in us with their beautiful product. So, and we could, you know, they were really driving the requirements, Tara and I. And I mean, you know, for a team that had never done digital at this size before, it was just amazing that the drive to pull it off. And as Tara said, we were testing things down to, you know, the last few hours. I mean, we got down to the wire. So Oh,
Okay, trying to, Don Moody, I see your hand is up. And
Hey, thank
we'd
you.
love you to ask your questions. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. So my question is, what we're all missing is the real, right? The live. And for me, what I'm missing the most is bumping into people that either I don't know, have never met before, maybe have heard of, or haven't seen for a long time. And I saw that great lobby picture that you had up at the beginning. And so I'm wondering, like, when you set something up like that, do you have KPIs for that? Like, is it tracking the number of people that have never met before? Is there an information exchange? Like, how do you suck out of that the thing that's missing from live?
We definitely had KPIs for probably all of the components around. I think they were a little bit less specific than how many, but I think it was more like how engaged, like how many people were engaged with a particular experience. And I think for Sundance, that's the one you could see, the one that was the more business oriented one, where people were really also like in the industry meeting the industry meeting the artists. That the other way around that was making that a little bit more intentional. People were able to match schedules. They were able to sort of see which projects they wanted to know more about. They were able to set meetings very, very quickly. We didn't have a picture of that, but that was the other way that I think we gauged success, was how many people used that platform and how many films got sold, how many people expressed satisfaction with that being the live experience. Which was really high. The industry platform went really, really well. I think on this side, what people valued the most was more like the randomness of it, the random encounters, in that sense. There was a bar in there that you could literally go sit yourself at the bar and someone could walk up to you, and that could be a stranger or that could be someone and plenty of people ran into each other. The Amsterdam thing became almost cult-like, with people saying, like, oh, I did karaoke last night with so-and-so. So like, I think like word of mouth and, just like how that sort of spread through, people were surprised by how much it felt like a real Sundance party. So I don't know. I don't think that was more than probably 15% of the people really power using that. But for the people that were power using it, I think they were using it pretty frequently.
Sounds like a nice job. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a question from Bill, William Whitehead. Bill?
Yes.
You can take
I'm
yourself
here.
off mute. Okay.
Yeah. So my question is, do you feel like that the people who attended were more accommodating, or that their expectations may have been lowered because of COVID and the timing? How do you think that impacted the event overall?
I was going to let John answer that one because you were Mr. Customer Service on this.
I definitely think people gave us some latitude, Bill, on immediacy. So they were okay, if the film started 2 minutes late. If it didn't work, that was a problem. But they didn't expect it to be exactly perfect. So I would say, yeah, we definitely got that, but we still had to deliver.
Yeah,
So,
I believe that that's the case, but one of the things that seems to have experienced, and the reason why I love what Robin is doing, and the direction that she has gone, is that this transition and how we dealt with the virtuality of being able to continue to do our jobs and be engaged. In some ways we became a little bit more human, because it's like, you're in your homes right now. I happen to have an office in my home. But it's obvious that we're all in places that were very different than what the history would have been, and so the experience was different. I'm just wondering about are the expectations lowered on high quality
Yeah,
delivery, that kind of thing.
We didn't lower any of our expectations on video quality and
Right.
delivery. So,
Awesome.
and
Right.
one of the other things, maybe this might help a little bit, Bill, is from a customer service point of view, we always had options. Right. So hey, you can't do it this way, do it this way, you can't do it this way. We had lots of plan Bs and plan Cs to make sure people could get to the films and get to the experiences that
Sounds
they
like
wanted.
you're a good
Incredible.
planner.
Well,
We're
the
gonna
other
get-
thing I would also say to that though is the festival itself is not perfect, right? Like, so I think people they were forgiving the same way they were forgiving at the live festival. I don't think I've ever been in a film that started on time, or, there've been occasional glitches, or, so I think that people in some ways came in with that experience of wanting to root for the film and the filmmaker. We just kind of drafted along with that, luckily,
Awesome.
so that same spirit was kind of applied to the technology.
Thank
And
you.
remembering that anybody would take anything over rewatching Mrs. Maisel or The Office. So you had a
Or
captive
Schitt's Creek
audience.
for the third time.
Hey, don't talk about Miss Maisel. I love her.
Me too, but only so much. Rob Durst, and then we're going to move on to our next speaker. Rob, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think I did. Thanks, Robin. I was just wondering, since you've been involved in the festival before, did you see any difference in performance between film deals being done in a traditional setting versus the online? Did you see one was greater than the other or less than the other?
I think there were more films sold this year than in previous years. I also think there was a higher appetite for digital content this year. So it's, by the time the festival rolled around, I think people were looking for content. So that probably helped that. But I think the unintended, what we learned in an unintended way was that, for plenty of people, especially overseas, it's tricky to get to Park City at the end of January. And so for the people that were able to, the industry that were able to access the films and they were able to access them video on demand. They had access to the full library and then have access to that industry platform. I would suspect there's a good number of people who will never come back just because it's, or will come back as for 2 days, but they'll have this other opportunity. You could even be doing this from your hotel room versus sludging across town in the snow. So I think in that sense, like the convenience of the deal making and the access to people that, that maybe you would struggle to get a meeting with, because they were meeting with other people, that all went very well.
The reason I'm wondering is that like with the Academy Award process, where they send out the I don't know what they call them, the DVDs for preview to the judges. That's a really asynchronous event. In other words, people are running around watching things. Sometimes they watch them, sometimes they don't watch them. There's restriction in terms of how they're disseminated. But this would seem to be a very effective platform to orchestrate that, because right now it's incredibly asynchronous and very dispersed.
Yeah, and actually that raises another point that we didn't talk about, which is, coming up to all the way until I think mid-November, we had no idea if the film, if the film teams would allow us to show the film broadly, or how many views they would allow us to show. And luckily, we had a number in mind. All the film teams agreed to it, but that's, in the past, that would have been a big barrier. And the reason people are running around with the DVDs is there's that big fear of piracy and, just the buzz and the excitement of a film, kind of getting out too far ahead of the film. But that, luckily that didn't happen. The films weren't pirated. And if anything, I think people saw that you can put a film out there. You look at a film like Coda, which ended up selling for a record amount and having so much written about it, that will probably have a gigantic release as a consequence. So hopefully the convenience of it will extend beyond this, beyond festivals.
Thanks.
So Tara and John, you are queued up like crazy for questions, but with your permission, we will move on and we're going to share your LinkedIn profile so that people can get in touch with you. But it is uplifting, and what you did for the arts in general during a crazy pandemic was amazing. And so I want to switch gears, and they're going to stop sharing their screen, and I want to introduce Teri Fisher, who I stumbled into. Teri runs something called The Voice Den. And if you have not been to The Voice Den, you must go to The Voice Den. It's all about audio. And he runs one of the most entertaining geeked out evenings that I can think of. And so, this has been a year for, I call audio the comeback kid in 2020. It was podcasts and Clubhouse, smart assistants, and voice proximity, as we just saw. And Teri is kind of a guru of all things audio. And I asked him to kind of we said we're going to do a very meta thing. I asked him to bring the best of Voice Den to you, and then you can all go join him on Voice Den as well. So Dr. Teri Fisher.
Thanks so much. Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Yeah, this is very meta because I'm sitting in sort of the set of when I broadcast the Voice Den. So I'll just give you a quick intro just to who I am, what my passion is, and why I even do these events. So I'm a physician. That's my day job. And outside of medicine, for the last, I'd say about 4 years, I have been really interested in voice technology. And I dove into it when I first learned about, and I have to make sure my device is muted here. I hope all of your devices are muted. Alexa, when I first learned about Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, and I started thinking about that and realizing how we are about to experience a complete transformation in the way that we all interact with technology. And I'll tell you a very brief story about that. I remember, and I'm going to date myself here, when I was about 10 years old, and I came home from school one day, and my parents had said, we bought our very first personal computer. And that was, well, I've always been a tech geek, but I was so excited. I ran into the office, and there sitting on the desk was a Tandy computer from Radio Shack. And I sat down and I started typing on the keyboard because the keyboard was the only way that we had to interface with a computer. And then what we have seen, what history shows us, is about every 10 years, we see a change in an operating system. So it went from MS-DOS and only a keyboard, 10 years later to Microsoft Windows with a mouse that's a little bit more intuitive, to 10 years later when Steve Jobs got up on stage and introduced the iPhone. And so now we have something that's a little bit more intuitive in terms of being able to swipe and pinch and all that kind of stuff. And now about 10 years later, approximately, we're at a place that because of the processing power of computers, and without getting too much into the tech stuff, but because of technologies like natural language understanding, natural language processing, we're flipping our interaction with computers on its head. So no longer are we having to adapt to computers to communicate. Computers are adapting to us because they can now understand how we speak. And when I started thinking about this and I realized how voice is the next operating system, I love educating. Before medical school, I did an education degree. I became a teacher. And then, and as I said, I love technology. And I started to think of ways that I could be creative in this space. And that's when I started podcasting, educating, speaking, and producing events like the Voice Den. And so the Voice Den is a series of events. It's a monthly series of events. And what I do in it is and it's very interesting because hearing about the last presentation from Sundance about the live aspect of bringing people together. When I go to conferences, the thing that I'm most excited about, the content is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but it's those outside the session interactions, those things when you get to meet those people that you maybe have been following on social media, or you get to go out for dinner, or you get to sit across them and have a drink. That is what I was trying to replicate with the Voice Den. And so I thought about this a lot, and every single little detail was all about trying to replicate a casual interaction with people that you otherwise aren't able to connect with live, truly live, in person, but try to bring that to a virtual event. So this is sort of the set, as I said. As you can see, I've strategically chosen this to look like a bar. It's very casual. There's drinks, and people are encouraged to come to what has become known as the happy hour of voice in the voice industry. And what I do with this, and here I'm just going to sort of share a little bit, like we heard, a little bit sort of the best of the Voice Den. So this is the meta part. I'm going to show you some clips of the Voice Den, and sort of I'll speak over that and explain a little bit about what I'm doing, the platform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'll do is when people come into the Voice Den, first of all, I use the platform called Crowdcast. And it is very, I liked it because it created that very community type atmosphere. And you'll see as I show you these clips, there's a lot of chat. Typically throughout the entire hour of each monthly session, the chat is going crazy. I encourage that. I encourage people to have fun, to joke, to heckle each other, to heckle the speakers, good natured, to just have a really, really good time with it. And when they come in, there's a lobby and I have some music. All the music is set to my brand. I've done audio branding because again, in an age where we're focusing on audio and speaking to computers, brands are going to be starting more and more to ask themselves not what their brand looks like, but what does their brand sound like? So I have audio and sonic branding throughout the event. And so this is what the lobby looks like. You'll see a countdown and then you'll see the introduction, and it's very much like a TV show. So I'll just play this for you. Count down here, and then it jumps into the opening theme, and then it introduces 5 of our guest speakers. So that's a little sort of taste of what it's like. Now you saw those 5 different speakers with those cards. We also heard like earlier on the idea of using NFTs. So I love to be creative. I love to be innovative. I want people to be excited. One of the things that we've done is with this event is I always have 5 what I call voicefluencers. And it's the chance for the live audience to get involved, speak with the voicefluencers, ask them questions. And these are typically some of the top thought leaders in the voice industry. And so what we did was I started to create basically collector's cards. And if I go back and I just show you, I need to find the right slide. There it is. So this is a slide where I go through and I introduce each of the voicefluencers. Each one of these cards is created like a baseball card. And what we've done is we've actually turned them into NFTs. So non-fungible tokens, where each speaker gets their collectible card. It truly is a collectible digital item. It is logged on the blockchain as an NFT is. I won't get too much into that. And we also give away special edition cards to our guests. And so this is a way that we can create some gamification. There are things that people can do to win these cards, and it's a lot of fun. So that's that little bit. The other thing that I'll show you, and I'm going to play you some other video clips here of the actual event, and I'll just speak over them again and give you a taste of what it's like. The thing that I want to emphasize is that with these 5 voicefluencers, as we call them on the show, the way it works is somebody from the audience asks a question, and then they get to have a little conversation with these voicefluencers on the show. Again, just as if they were sitting across from them, in a restaurant. And so you'll see that here in the video. And like I said, I'll just speak over it a little bit here. Hey, welcome. So this is the Voice Den. This is the Crowdcast platform. You can see the chat is going there. The chat is very, very active.
Thank you so much for being part of the show. Oh, this is so much
fun. And so what you'll notice is, I'm going to turn down the volume a little bit of my speaking there so that you can hear me live speaking. What you'll notice is that along the bottom with this Crowdcast platform, there's a number of different features there. You can see where it says call to action. You can see where it says ask a question. You can see where it has polls. You can see the number of people that have registered for the event. And what I'm about to put up here is a poll. And so this is one of the other ways that I get people engaged. I always want to make an effort of welcoming the new people. I want this to be a very welcoming space. And so I'll typically ask a question about, what is your voice den status, whether you're a rookie, a veteran in the space. Keep the questions very light, very casual. And then you can see the platform is quite easy to use. You create the question, you put visible or hidden, and then people can start to vote on their question. So that's one way that I engage people in this platform. The other thing, and you'll see there, I just clicked on the ask a question button. This is where I encourage people to type in their questions for the voicefluencers. And then everybody else can vote on what are their favorite questions. So throughout the entire hour, people are voting. You'll see I click on there and I upvote that question as an example. And And then basically that helps me to determine who from the audience I'm going to call on to come and sit in the hot seat, so to speak. And then when they come on, I bring on 2 other people, 2 of the voice influencers at a time, and then they get to have that conversation. The other thing that I will mention, and as it goes along here, I'll just fast forward the video here a little bit. So here is an example of 2 of the voice influencers. So the 2 women that you see at the bottom are 2 of our guest speakers. The gentleman to the top right, he was the one that asked the question. So I brought him on screen, and now everybody in the audience gets to pay attention to this. Some people have said it's almost like Shark Tank. This gentleman is getting to speak with 2 of the leaders in the voice industry. In this case, 2 conversation designers, and everybody else is getting a chance to listen into this. And you'll notice over my little quadrant, there's a timer. It says 4:18. This is another way that I brought gamification in, because each of these mini conversations is timed, and each person only gets 5 minutes. And here's another example of 2 of the voice influencers answering a question or having a discussion. And here's the timer going down.
But it makes it really, really fun.
And so that is a really fun way to keep people engaged. It's a game. It keeps things moving really quickly, and it's a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about that. Let me keep playing here, and I'll just show you a couple of other features here. This is when I introduce the voice influencers for the subsequent session. So I'm always thinking a month ahead, and I make it a big reveal. And so let me show you a little bit more about what that reveal looks like. Again, the audio branding, it's like a TV show. This is introducing some of the upcoming voice influencers. What you will notice is that, what you'll notice is that each of these voice influencers has a nickname. So we've actually gone to the trouble of branding each one of them, and that's how we refer to them. So this one coming up is the bodyguard. Talking about chatbots. This person's a conversation designer, and then we show who they are, and then we show that collectible card that people can win and that the person will get. So this is a kind of a fun way to introduce them. So let me come back to the video here. So another nice thing about this is I can bring up a call to action button with this platform. And so that's directly the link to get them to register, to get the audience to register for the subsequent session. Okay, so that's a little bit about the voice den. I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. The other thing I want to mention is more recently, as you heard about with that spatial audio type experience, we've started doing the spatial audio party. So after the hour session of the voice den, one of the limitations of whether it's Zoom or whether it's a webinar, you can only have so many people speaking at once, right? You can't have 100 people speaking at once, but that's different in spatial audio. And so this particular platform that I'll show you, and I'll play it, and again, I'll turn the volume down, I'll just speak over it a little bit. This is basically an augmented reality spatial audio platform that people can jump into. This design, it was designed to look like the voice den. And what happens is you come in and you only hear the audio that is around you. It's like being in a real bar. And so when people first come in, it's loud because there's 100 people coming in that entrance. And then people start moving around and you hear who's next to you. There's sort of the set to the left, the voice den and the table. There's the DJ. The DJ is actually playing the music that you're hearing right now. As you walk around, you might hear some glasses clinking. That's the bar sounds as you walk closer to the bar. As you go out onto the deck, there's a stage there where we can have performances of people doing things in real time. As you go out onto the deck, if you listen closely, we're going to be on the ocean. You'll be able to maybe hear some waves. I'll stop talking for a sec and just see if that's... As you get closer and closer to the ocean does get louder. And then you can walk around. People can congregate wherever they want here in little groups and go on the beach, walk down to the water, hear the waves, come back, walk around and go up to the front. And so this is a wonderful way for people to get together and experience spatial audio. And now you truly can have conversations with whoever you want. So that's that last little bit. And then I want to share one other thing with you. And that is the idea of social audio. So I'm going to fast forward this a bit. Some of you may have tried Clubhouse. It's this new social audio platform that is taking the world by storm. This is what the interface looks like. It's completely social. It's completely audio voice. When you go on, just like any other platform, you do have a profile that you can create. And otherwise, you can scroll through different types of rooms. This particular one was about NFTs. I click, sorry, this is an example of an event that I've scheduled in Clubhouse. Here's the NFT room. So I've clicked on it. I've gone into the room and you can see that there are speakers, there's audience members, and people can join the discussion. It's completely audio. It's incredible, the amount of engagement that you have in that platform. And so the last thing that I wanted to mention was simply that I'm leveraging that now, and I'm going to be holding the first conference on social audio, specifically on Clubhouse, called VoiceCon Live. I don't want to get into too much detail about that right now because I know I've covered a lot here, but this is really exciting. It's the first time that we are going to have a 28-hour, round-the-clock conference covering all time zones, specifically at the intersection of voice and technology, using social audio to hold that conference. And so I think I'm going to stop there. Looking at the time, I'd love to take some questions. I know I covered a lot, and I'm happy to answer any questions. These are all sort of the oops, I got to get out of the way here. The websites, if you're interested in checking those out at all. So that said, I'm going to be quiet for a moment. And I'm happy to answer questions. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, no, I'm looking for hands. So I'll start until I see a hand. Oh, wait, I think I see a hand. Nope, we just promoted your happy hour. So what's the traffic like? Tell us about Clubhouse versus the voice den on Crowdcast. Different audience, same audience, bigger audience, smaller audience?
They're different. What I can say is that I purposely try to sort of cross-pollinate the two, right? So that I can bring people from the voice den over to Clubhouse. In Clubhouse, I have a club called the Voice Den, and there I do almost 3 times a week. We just do hangouts, the happy hour voice on Clubhouse. People from Clubhouse have also come to the Voice Den. Clubhouse as a social audio platform, as a social media platform, now has a reach of over 10 million people over the course of 1 year. So it's now on iOS, it's now on Android. It is huge. I'll give you an example. I held a room in Clubhouse, which was a 1.5 hour interview with the co-inventor of Apple Siri and then Samsung Bixby. And over the course of 1.5 hours, we had 5,000 people join us in that room, which is bigger than some of the major voice conferences that were going on before COVID shut down. 5,000 people in an hour and a half, to give you an idea of that reach. The Voice Den online event is not like that, but there's about 100 people that come through the event on a monthly basis.
So no, and this, now I'm going to ask you the tough question. I think audio did very well during the pandemic because anybody would do anything to be hands-free. And I think down the road, I think this year you're going to see haptic as well, added to voice as one more way to talk to things. I think you're going to see gestures and hand controls. You're going to see more VR come down in price and be more widely available. But your voice still going strong as we continue?
Voice is still going strong. What I'll say is this. We are entering an era where we're going to be experiencing something known as ambient computing. And, yes, there's lots of debate about privacy, security, et cetera. That aside, we are going to be living in a place where there are more and more smart microphones and speakers. Voice, when you think of it this way, VOICE, very quickly, voice is versatile. It allows you to multitask, unlike you cannot with other forms of technology. You can't drive while you're typing, but you can drive while and speak. So it's versatile. Oh, it's omnipresent. It's audio. It's around you. Somebody behind you can call your name and you're aware of that. But with text, screens, you have to be looking at it. You have to be using your eyes. It's innate. When we're born, the first thing that we do is, as a baby, we cry. We use our voice. It is instinctual. And because of that, and because we can talk to computers, babies, kids, toddlers are now interfacing with computers earlier than ever before because they don't have to read or write. They just have to know how to talk, and they can talk to a computer. C, it's contextual. You can hear the tone of my voice. How many times have you written an email or received an email and you didn't know if the person was trying to be funny or trying to be sarcastic? With voice, you can do that. That leads into a whole area of AI in terms of computers being able to detect emotion, which is happening. Computers are actually able to detect diseases. There's been a study about detecting COVID by the sound of our voice. And then E, it's efficient. The average person speaks at 150 words per minute. The average person, that's right. The average person speaks at 150, types at 40. So it's 3 to 4 times faster. It's not going to be voice only. There's going to be a place for other interfaces as well, but voice is going to be, this is going to be the decade of voice as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Lois, do I see you raising your hand? Lois Whitman, you're not on mute. Go ahead.
I don't know if my question is appropriate, but I want to ask Dr. Teri.
Please.
I mean, what you've shown us is so incredible. And I really thought a lot of people that initiate Zoom meetings would have some of this technology involved in their meetings, but most of them are just very elementary. Do you have a department of your company where you lend out your teaching services to teach people to be more vibrant on Zoom calls and use more of the shared technology, the voice technology? You have like the Oculus Quest 2 look to your call. It's very exciting, and everyone is talking about, will IRL work or will digital work? I think what you're doing is really the future, whether we go back live or not. I certainly had been on 6 different calls today, and what you are showing us is really what the future is, whether we go back live or we stay behind our screen. So congratulations. But I really want to know 2 things. What kind of a doctor you are, and
Are you married?
I want to know if I've ever visited you, and also, do you offer your services to other companies?
Well, first, thank you so much for those kind words. I really appreciate that. That's one of the things that, excuse me, I got something in my throat here. That's one of the things that I really try to do is, as you can see, I love to be on the cutting edge. I love to innovate. I love to be creative. And, just, this may explain some of it, but back in the day, and still, I'm a musician, and I just absolutely love performing. And so being able to be in front of an audience and speak and that kind of stuff, I just really enjoy that experience too, in addition to educating. To answer your question about my company, my day job is a doctor. You may not believe this, but everything that I have done in the voice space has come out of a hobby. It's been a hobby, it's been a passion project, and I have put this together essentially on my own. I do not have anybody producing this stuff. When I run a show, as I just did, I have basically what's called a stream deck. It's a piece of hardware in front of me, and I use it to just, to dial in the various scene changes as I do it in real time. Having said that, I have gotten that question a lot, and I am happy to provide consulting in terms of the technology and the hardware and what I recommend. And so if anybody wants to speak with me about that, I'm more than delighted to do so. So thank you so much for those kind words. Really appreciate that.
Any other hands up? Alan Wallace, go ahead.
Hi, Robin. Dr. Teri, nice to meet you. Actually, what was really strange for me in looking at the one room where you were walking around is it looked like 2 things that I remember. 1, the palace, and 2, showstoppers, and I missed both of them tremendously. What I was curious about, though, in that particular room, have you thought of doing anything, perhaps using 5.1 audio, to where if you're walking around the room but somebody is over here, that if you have your speakers set up properly at home, you can get an idea of where they may be talking to you from?
So that's a great question. And Alan, to be honest, right now, the way I've presented it here, it's impossible for me to demonstrate that to all of you unless you are actually in there and moving around. But the whole idea of the spatial audio, when people enter that space in real time, they should wear headphones because it works with, it works exactly what you've described on.
Okay.
So if somebody's next to me on my left, it sounds like they're coming from my left. And as they move around me, the audio changes. You can literally go up to somebody in that space, turn to them, whisper to them, and it sounds like you're whispering in
Now
their
it's getting weird. Yeah.
So that's, and what I'll also say is what that space that you just saw, and I want to give a shout out to this company, Spatial Web. They have now partnered with me going forward to, and I haven't actually told anybody this. So this is the first time that I'm saying this, but it's going to be version 2.0, where what you just saw was all bird's eye view. We are now in the process of creating a truly 3-dimensional experience. So now you can adjust the perspective. You can either come down and be in the room and moving around the walls in 3D, or looking at above from bird's eye view. So there's a lot more interaction that's going on there, but the audio part, it's exactly what you described. It's just impossible to demonstrate that through Zoom without you actually being in the space.
Well, I'm glad to learn about you, and I'm glad that Robin found you to bring you on.
Yeah, and now I'm going to put him on the spot. So Teri, I watched you. Yes, he said he was a drummer and a doctor, and he does all of the audio things as a hobby. Teri, I watched you beat drum on the voice den. So I'm going to close our meeting for the weekend, but I am going to ask you to beat drum us out. Would you do it?
Okay, well, here's the thing, Robin. You have to realize, so I had a guest come on, and this is another connection with Clubhouse. I had a guest come on to one of my sessions to actually provide entertainment. And he's the professional beatboxer, and he tried to get me to do it on there. So I'm nowhere near what he does. But
you were still real. I practiced after you practiced, and you were still better than me.
Okay, I've never done this before then, as like being asked to do it. I literally learned how to do it on that show, but I'll do it for you. And here's what he told me. He told me like to make these sounds. I'll see if I can put it together.
I'm gonna do it with you. We're with you.
Okay, there's like a puh sound, like for a bass drum. Then there's a for a snare drum, and then there's like a little for a hi-hat. And then he taught me the way that you say Chewbacca, like the nickname for Chewbacca in Star Wars is Chewie. If you say Chewie like this, it sounds like a record scratch. So then you get That's my best version. So that's it. That's what you get. That's fun.
That was really good.
Oh, that's
fun.
Was
really good. And it leaves us right on time. It is 4:00. I hope that your Memorial Day is one step closer to normal this weekend, and that whatever you do, it's safe and fun and rewarding. Let us know any ideas. Go to the virtualeventsgroup.org and sign up for our newsletter and look at what else we have to offer. We're building the community that I hope you want to see. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next month when you're going to have a choice of 3 really good potential speakers that I will wind up this week. Okay? Happy holiday, everybody.
Thank you.